Neqotkuk N'Tetli Mikwi Tahasoltipen. At Tobique we are remembering.
I was an athlete growing up, so naturally recreation was something that I was passionate about. And at the time, we never had nothing here. We didn't have no youth center, we didn't have no recreation programs, we didn't have nothing for young people to do to pass time, have fun, socialize without drugs and alcohol being involved. And I just had my daughter, so I made it a goal and a mission to change that. I was fortunate that the late Nick Paul Sr. Had a program where he ran Tasha Moulton to do recreational stuff. So I kind of just supported her, did an assessment on what her needs were at the time, and they gave us the complex. So we took the complex, which was in really bad condition at the time, we slowly turned it into what it is today. Prior to its closure, which I think was in the early 2000s, it was a sports complex. It was a band-operated business that had a bowling alley, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 lanes. Obviously indoor pool, which still exists. Fitness room. They had, they would sell booze and stuff there to make money, and it was pitched to the community in the 90s as the economic development initiative. The community invested about $4 million, so it's a $4 million asset. Very well built. Unfortunately, what they didn't plan for was sustainability. So over the years, the systems and the infrastructure needed maintenance and preventative maintenance, which at the time the band didn't have money to do. So slowly but surely it ran into problems. I think the roof was the biggest one. They didn't have operational dollars to keep people on salary to clean. So it turned into a health hazard, and they ended up shutting it down. When we picked it up, we started cleaning it, getting rid of everything that was moldy from not being used for probably a number of years. Anything that was unhealthy we disposed of. And we started to run maybe a 3-4 hour program once a night. Tasha would do basketball and sporting events, outdoor activities, stuff like that. Nothing too planned out. And we hired people just so that kids would have a spot to go hang out and socialize. We didn't have a lot of money to run actually we had no money to run programs. So everything we did, it was kind of ad hoc, or we fundraised. We did a lot of fundraising at the time. At one time we did a lotto. One time we did duck races. I think we were always fundraising for little events. We started meeting with other communities, and we came up with the plan to bring back the Indian Summer Games, which came with funding, and we were able to use that funding to run programs that associated with the sports that go on at the Summer Games. I know that the initial intention was for it to be a band-owned enterprise, like a bowling alley that would make money for the band. This is before my time, so I can only speculate, is that they didn't have operational funding to sustain the amount of maintenance, salaries that would be required to run an operation of that size. So eventually, when you lose so many money over a number of quarters, you have to close. And that's what happened. They closed, never reopened. After they closed, no one one person was responsible to make sure that it was taken care of. So me and Tasha's vision when we started was that we looked at the model of like what a YMCA did and the kinds of programs and services that they provide their communities, and we're like, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could do that? So we started meeting with the province, did a plan up for the chief and council at the time to get some funding, and we were successful to get operational funding from the casino. So our casino was a big part in the growth of the youth center. We paid the staff, we funded a lot of the activities, we built a partnership with the health center. Health center put a lot of funds into it, and we brought in child and family services. So everybody was then starting to chip in on a robust program that we felt was producing results at the time. We were producing good athletes, we were getting kids off the street, and they had a place to go that was safe. Just keeping kids active and doing healthy things as opposed to, well, we all know what happens on the street. It's still a work in progress, and it still needs investment, but it's way better off than where we started.
So I started from a young age. I started like volunteer work when I was probably maybe 12, by like helping to coach figure skating. Eventually that evolved to coaching other things just as a support person. And it was just kind of what I liked to do. I was pretty passionate about that. Started with the youth council. When I started to work with holistic education. From a young age, it was kind of what I was passionate about doing as a teen. And then I worked for holistic education as a tutor for a few years, got involved with the youth council. I applied for a position here in 2017 as assistant to the director of youth services. I worked in that position for 3 years. When the director of youth services position came available, I was asked to take that position interim for a year. I took it, and then at the end of that year, they offered me the full-time position, and that has been 3 years. It's up and down. It always has been. When I started, there's a lot of work to do, and there's still a lot of work to do. But when I started my position, there was just myself and one other staff member who was basically here because it was some funding that we received for a cultural mentor. That person was like on their way out, so I was looking to hire a new one. And now we're a team of 9, so we've grown like tripled, quadrupled at this point. So it's been a lot with the building that we've added, a lot of stuff inside, but the biggest expansion that we've had is like in programs, because before it was just, we were here, did a couple activities through the week, but now we have activities every day. We provide suppers every night and snacks. So we have a full kitchen. We have a little gaming and arcade space that has like a couple gaming stations, a pool table. We have a big multi-purpose space that's used for parties and workshops. We have a resource center that is primarily used by an organization that works with children that are on the autism spectrum. We have added the culture room, which we're in now. And then, so we have the pool too, that has also had its own issues, and it still does to this day. We have a fitness center that is amazing, gets a lot of use. And we also rent space to holistic education, and they've been here for forever. So Monday to Friday, we have 2 staff that cycle on days and evenings, and they plan nightly activities that can range anywhere from like cooking to crafts to sports. It kind of varies what they plan. They do a lot of like self-care nights, spa nights, paint nights, things like that. That's a program that they do. We have the sport and recreation lead and community mentor for Right to Play, Krista Sakabason, who is the head of like recreation programs, and she kind of is a supervisor to Mariah Sakabason as well, and they work together to provide the sport and rec programs, which we have basketball club that happens at Mossy School weekly, and then also open gym that happens at the school. And throughout the year, we do different sports depending on the season. Maggie Francis, who is our culture and language lead, she does programs like beading, she does Maliseet bingos, she brings in different cultural people to do cultural arts.
All right, Niltas Wali with Maggie Francis, Nilna J out Neqotkuk. So I am Maggie Francis and I am from Tobique First Nation. My role here at the Youth Center is that I'm the cultural and language lead. So I'm bringing in programs that are giving the kids, they're hearing the language that they otherwise might not get or hear at home. So it's mostly about giving the kids the opportunity to learn a little bit of their culture. A big part of my job is creating a safe space for the youth when they're here. This is their hub, their home, they're fed, they're cared for. So it's just easy to give them the language and give them opportunity to do crafts when they're already here. So a big part of my job is to make sure that we have like elders in place or other language keepers that can come in and, you know, kind of like let the children lead the way, but also just the opportunity of bringing both our elders and our youth together. Like with COVID, I felt like for a long time we couldn't do that. And a lot of our elders are at home and they're lonely. So when they get opportunity to come to the youth center, it's like, it's such a good time. Like if it's a really good feeling at the end of the day, seeing the work that they can create together and hearing their stories. And it's just really good bonding that I know is gonna be a good take home for the child, but also like for the elders that we have come in too. So when I first started at the youth center, I was mostly beading. I would come in every week. We would do 2-hour beading groups. There's usually a dinner because food is what always brings people together. And around the time that we were beading, it was just dinner time anyway. That's kind of our target time where we try to get the youth, but also maybe the parents involved as well, to make it like a more wholesome family event. And the groups would fluctuate, you know, some weeks we would have like just so many tables and so many people to keep up with. And then sometimes it would just be a smaller intimate group where that's okay because that person is getting that one-on-one time. And so that person is learning a lot and taking home a lot. So where I started only as a beater, I know that's what I brought to the table. Looking at my community and seeing who is there and who can we utilize to bring people in and introduce the language more is what I really want to see. I'm not a fluent speaker. I will bring out the words and the knowledge that I do know. We talk about smudging a lot. We've done medicine bags. So we've had elders come in and talk to us about medicines before. Now we've started a drum group in the fall. I'm hoping that will carry through 2024. We've talked about having the children make their own drum, but those drums become a part of the youth center so that any child has access to them, and that when the drum group comes to an end or when the time is done, that child has learned the songs and they've learned how to take care of their drum and they're able to take that home with them. So we do see some goals for 2024. I've had other people come in and do like cooking classes with the kids where they're getting the instructions all in Maliseet. So we know that the kids want the language, they want to learn, they want to be involved. And it's just a matter of like being creative and trying to keep up with their trends, so to speak. I know for me, when I was a teen, like I try to think about, you know, when I was their age, that we didn't have these types of programs to go to. So I felt like when I was growing up, I felt like it wasn't even cool to be Native, right? Like, so we would do a lot of things outside of the community. So a big part of my learning, like I'm learning just as the children at the youth center are learning. We feel like we're at the same pace. So I'm always learning like alongside with the youth here. And I think that's a big part of like what Tina wanted to see happen here, is to put people in this position that they're gonna benefit from it themselves, but they're also gonna make sure that the community and the youth get to profit from it as well. So I started this position just in the fall, and it was Labor Day weekend, which would have been the same time as Cultural Day. So that would have been our first big event that we had, a community feast all together at lunchtime. There was a sacred fire lit for that, so anybody at any time, if they couldn't make it to any of the events, that they were able to just go and make their offering as they wanted to, and just keeping it open for people. And then we just had family crafts here following lunch, but in the morning it was all mostly ceremonial, so we were able to collaborate a lot with the education. And Imelda was the one that led us into the sacred fire at her space, and we used her yard. She had a tent. We were able to gather and drum and just kind of have coffee and conversation and just talk about what Labor Day would have been like way back then, and watching it as, you know, unfold now, seeing the children everywhere, and the softball games going on. Like, it just kind of goes like hand in hand. The next one, it'd be nice to have it maybe early to catch it so that it's its own event and we can get more of the community involved, and I can be better prepared. So it was a big event, but it was nice to get started and to keep it simple, because every year the programs just grow and grow. So the next event that we had was for Truth and Reconciliation Day, and that's where we had a slideshow going on with that had all the information. We didn't have a guest speaker at that time, but we still had an event here for the children. Like the whole week leading up to it, they were able to design their own t-shirts that we displayed outside on the windows. The whole building was all decorated in orange, and we tried to make it more kid-friendly in a way that they would understand what the purpose of the day is. They're learning a lot about it now at schools, which is amazing. So that work is being done. And then when they're coming here and gathering with their friends, then that's just a conversation we have, and we can kind of take it one step further with them. And then after that, we had bingo, we had a feast, we had really good prizes for the kids, we had a really good turnout. So the bingo was in Maliseet, and we were able to bring in Wendy Moulton and her son Wyatt, and they were able to do it. And it's just, it's so cool to see someone so young be that fluent in the language. I noticed people really enjoyed bingo. So when we came to Christmas time, we had another Maliseet bingo. And that was a bigger event where we had Tina come back, and she had started the Maliseet bingo last year. So she was coming back to be the caller again and have all the numbers out there. Like it was another big event to see like moms come and aunties and Mimis come and hang out with the kids. And it was just like little gifts, I find, but it was just the whole event together, having them all come in around Christmas time. It was really nice and special. And honestly, I feel like all the time I wish I could just do more or offer more anyway. Maybe that's just like a personal thing at the end of the day. Like, we do as much as we can with what support that we have. So knowing next year, it would I would like to have it more of more hands on deck for sure, more help from the youth as well. Like these events are for the youth, but it's also helpful to have the youth be involved in the whole day, making them feel important and like knowing that they're included and giving them that good sense of pride too is, I think, is a big part of like what the youth center is supposed to be doing, is empowering children and preparing them for adulthood. So if we can role model, these events are fun, give them fun times, that's what they're gonna remember, and that they're gonna model that in the future for the next generation for us.
So what makes a good youth center in your eyes? Just with the implications, because
I would say, like, first off, a safe space. So, and safe would mean like everything, like the building's safe, the people are safe, inclusion, food security, like everything like that. Whatever makes a person safe, like it needs to be safe first. So we're working on, we do have it like in our mission statement, but I don't really feel like it's ours. So we're kind of working towards like using the 7 teachings to use those as more guiding principles rather than using something that's kind of just been created for like the sake of funding. Because we've come a long ways in the last 3 years, but it's like, okay, where now? What now? Our building's better than it was. It's not perfect. Our team is way bigger and it's awesome. I will, no complaints about my team. I know that the people here are really passionate and they love what they do. So I guess just to build that a little bit more and to add services. So that's the one thing that I always struggled with, is like, why is my position Director of Youth Services when I'm not really providing like actual services? I guess in the terms of like, mental health services, the services that are so needed by so many youth here. So I guess that's my next step, is actually bringing those services here to the youth rather than the youth having to go and seek those services, because I feel like, services is a pretty intimidating word as it is. So why don't we bring those services into a space where they're already comfortable? So yeah, we're kind of like on that path and it's looking good. So that's kind of where I think we need to go next. And along with like a new building, I think that's something we have to work towards. Well, obviously we have a lot of different issues in the community. So kids come in from, we don't know what, right? So my staff are dealing with it and not always prepared to deal with it. So yeah, to have the mental health clinicians, social workers, anything. So the way that we're kind of moving is integrated youth services, which is like any service that a youth would need, they would walk in and be able to like get that service here, whether it's like from housing, like budgeting, like anything that they needed, they could walk in and say like, hey, I need help with this. And then we would have like the person to help them with whatever it is they're struggling with. So yeah, a lot of our events are, of course, we're geared towards youth, but a lot of them are attended by general community. And it's kind of a spot where like everybody can come, and we want everybody to come.
So going into winter now, I feel like things kind of slow down a little bit with programming, just because a lot of people are home. It's warm at home. I get it. It's hard to leave your house at the end of the workday and want to come out to a program. So we really do appreciate any person that does come. There's always children here. At first they'll act like, no, they don't want to make a medicine bag or sit there and talk medicine, but they do. They come around, and that's the point of it too, is the programs that we have on, they're weekly and there's no pressure. Like, we put them on no matter what, and we stay the full time that we say we're gonna stay, because you never know when someone's gonna turn up, because Indian time happens and maybe someone's not there right at 6 o'clock, but they'll be there for 7. And so we'll be there as well.
I'm pretty proud of the progress that we've made. The community should be proud of the youth center that we have. There's a lot of communities that I know don't have that. So we're proud of the growth and where it's at today. Well, the future looks like we're going to be providing some social services for youth, some mental health services for youth. It's looking like we're going to have more of a sport and recreation role in the community because we got an outdoor rink that's almost completed. We have 2 ball fields that are pretty much brand new that we've invested in. So we definitely want to have some Little League ball during the summer. There's a soccer field coming in the future. So we're trying to build the infrastructure so that the youth in the future have the tools that they need to excel at the sport that they decide they want to excel at. We're also going to be starting a committee, a planning committee, to start looking at the planning and development of a new youth center, what that would look like, what the cost would be. So we need to build a building that meets those needs. By needs, I mean the mental health. We want our youth coming up to have good mental health. That's important these days. The kind of activities that they're interested in are probably different than what they were, back in the early 2000s, so we want to try and accommodate those. We have to talk to the youth, we have to consult with them, we need them to be a part of the planning. The same way that they came to us with a plan for the youth park. That was their plan that we took, and it's now coming to fruition. I think it's a component to the wheel of the youth center, and that's always been a value of the youth center. It's sport, recreation, culture and arts, health. It's all encompassing, and they can all blend together, and I'm happy we're able to incorporate language and culture into the youth center. We have an education department now that supports that. The health center supports it. They're doing great work, setting up cultural activities, making ribbon skirts and clothing and those types of things, basket making, beading, like all of these things that my generation never got a chance to do. Our children are doing it now, which is great. But moving into the future, we have to continue that, and we have to build on it.
And it's just always just giving kids the opportunity, no matter what. It's there if they want it. If they want to come around, then that's okay. And I feel like if you give them enough opportunity, eventually, that they're gonna come to, and they're not gonna be so shy, and they're gonna be familiar with you. And that's really what the youth center provides, is just consistency.